Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Steps. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change your front air suspension shock on your W219 CLS class, and this procedure will also work for the W211 E class. So what I'm going to be changing today is the suspension on my left, and as you can see the gap here, the suspension is dropped. It works, but it's leaking very bad. The car drops on the left side and I'm going to be changing the front left shock. So I'll show you on the other side how there's a bigger gap and the right suspension is fine. So as you can see on the right side, there's much more space from the car to the tire, and this suspension is working good. So the left one is bad, and I'm going to show you how to replace it. Things I'm going to be using and what you'll be needing is car jack, an air suspension strut, and I have a Arnott suspension strut. The tools and sockets I'm going to use: you're going to need a hammer, a 10mm key, 13/16. I have extension, a ratchet, another 13/16 socket, 13mm socket, 8mm socket, 17mm socket, and a 10mm socket. To get started, what I'm going to do is jack the car up from the front left. First, what I'm going to do is crank wheel bolts open. Just get a bigger bar so you don't have to use that much pressure. It helps you get more leverage. So just crack all these open, loosen them up, and then jack up the car and take off the wheel. Now that I have loosened all the bolts, I'm going to jack up the car and remove the wheel. What I'm going to be jacking car up from is the rubber mount right underneath. And you can hear my air suspension is leaking as I lift the car. So I'm going to lift the car just enough to get the wheel off the ground, and I'm going to remove my wheel. So I remove my lugs, and now I'm going to remove my wheel. I'm visually inspecting my bag. There's no leaks in the rubber or anything. The leak is internal, as you heard before. So I'm going to replace the bag. So first, what I'm going to do is remove right here, as you can see, the 13/16 bolt. So you're going to need the wrench on this side and the socket on the other side right behind, so you can hold it and open it. So when we remove that, we are also going to take off the fender wall, which there are going to be a couple 10mm plastic bolts. As you can see, as they look like these. There are going to be 7 of them, so I'm going to remove the fender wall lining. After removing that, we're going to remove the electrical connection behind. I'm going to remove also the 17mm bolt to remove the ball joint from the control arm, and then after that, on top there's going to be 3 13mm bolts holding the strut. Remove that, the electrical connection, and the air line. Let's get started. So here's the lower bolt. So what you do is you get your 13/16 wrench and you put it onto the nut, and then use your socket, the 13/16, and you put it on the front of the bolt, and you're basically just going to twist it and open it and pull it out. So I've removed this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open 17mm ball joint nut. I'm going to remove this and separate the control arm and the ball joint. The technique to separate the ball joint from the control arm: don't use the ball joint tie rod separator because that rips the ball joint. So you do is get a hammer and you just whack it on the left, right, and front side a bunch of times, and as you can see, the ball joint will pop up. Before doing that, like I showed in the beginning, you are going to loosen the nut and take it all the way to the bottom and have it flush with the nut and the bolt. So now I have loosened it. So now what you're going to have to do is just push it together and then just open this. And I've opened mine, and now as you can see, it separates and comes off. I'm going to remove the inner fender line, and I'm going to take off my electrical connector for the suspension. So I've removed the fender line. At the bottom is going to be the electrical connector, so push and pull off, and here I'm going to remove the electrical connector off the clip. So in order to take the electrical connector off the plastic plate, just get something thin, like I got a needle nose plier, and in between there's going to be a little clip that holds it, so you just push it a little bit and then push this back and it comes right out. Remove it from the back and pull it. Here's the electrical connector. So now what I'm going to do is go under the hood, remove the couple bolts up there, and pull out the suspension. So first open the hood, and then once you've opened the hood, this plastic cover, just there's going to be little locks, just turn them and then pull the cover up and set it aside. And here, right here is the suspension. So first, what we're going to do is remove the electrical. So you just push on top and then you pull. Electrical, set it aside. We're going to move the airline with the 10 mm, and we're going to move the airline. And here's my airline. So I've removed that. Get yourself a 13 mm socket and remove. There's going to be 3. 1, 2, and 3. So after removing all 3, now we're going to come down here. What you're going to do is push the whole rotor assembly down, pull the shock up front, and then you're going to wiggle it out. And just as I have done right here, you wiggle it out, and here is the old shock. I'm going to reinstall my new one, reverse order of everything I did. So make sure you install it correctly. So I'm installing it on the left side. So as you remember, I've opened the airline, the side facing towards me, so coming outwards. So here's the airline. And now what I'm going to do is first tilt it, put it up, and then get it up there, put the 3 nuts on, and then I'm going to bolt everything back together. I'm going to tighten the nuts at the top, just hand tighten them so the suspension stays in place. Now I'm going to place it on the control arm and put the bottom 13/16 nut back on. I've placed it, and now place the bolt in and tighten the nut on the other side. So if the bolt doesn't align up, and all you have to do is just push the rotor assembly a little bit down. I have tightened the bottom bolt right here, tightened it, and now I'm going to place my electrical connector back in its places, plug it on, and fender line back on. Also, I'm going to place my ball joint in and tighten the bolt and tighten this down. Push in the metal into the clip, in, and now all you do is slide it on and it locked. And now I'm going to connect the electrical connector. There's only one orientation, so just make sure you plug it in the right way. And after you plug it in, you should hear a little click. And now I'm going to place this back on. Now I'm going to place the fender. You're going to put the fender line back on and just put on all the bolts where you took them off from. So to install this back is a little tricky because you have to make sure the ball joint is sitting into this arm, or else if you tighten this, it's going to keep spinning the ball joint. So what you do is just basically hold it as tight as you can. You can see it makes the gap, and then tighten it down. So it's tricky, like I said. So what you can do is just get like a deadlock plier, place it and lock it, and then basically tighten the nut down. And once it's tight, you basically take the deadlock off. Now since the ball joint is sitting in the arm, now you can tighten it and it won't spin. So there we go, now I've tightened it. And now what I'm going to do is come on top. Now I'm going to tighten my 13 mm down, the 3 on top. So just tighten them down. Place my air hose back in. And I'm going to tighten it down. So first, it's easier, just hand tight it. And then use the 10 mm. Now the last thing is make sure you plug in your electrical connector. It's plugged in, and I'm going to place my cover back on. So I've placed my wheel back on, and now don't drop the car all the way, just a little bit, so your car is sitting on its wheel and just enough so it lowers, so the car knows it's lower. And now I'm going to turn on the car and wait for the air suspension to fill up and rise. Now just wait for the air suspension to fill up. Now once it's filled up, I'm going to drop my jack slowly, and the suspension is going to keep filling it up itself. And now as you can see, I've removed my jack, and now my car has been leveled and it's sitting perfectly. As you can see, it's raising. And there you have it. You can see now there's a big gap. My suspension is running perfect. And now I don't have any suspension problems. So it is very easy. It does take about an hour to do, but you know, you save a ton of money. And if you've liked this video and it's helped you, you know, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you. So from the inside controls, now it's sitting at the drop level, and now I can raise it and you'll see it goes up with no problem. And now it's going to raise. And it's raising up.